In this cold, the air becomes glass. Every breath cuts. And I live alone out here. At -71, the forest doesn't just sleep. It dies.
It's a silence so heavy you hear your own blood moving. You don't expect visitors.
My world had shrunk to this 10-foot circle of warmth. Everything else was white oblivion.
That's when I heard it. Not the wind. Something at the door. But this wasn't a knock of warning. It was a scrape of exhaustion.
I cracked the seal. The cold that rushed in wasn't just air. It was a predator.
I looked down, and my lungs forgot how to work.
It was a bear. A wild, fully grown Siberian bear, lying on my stoop like a wet dog. She should have been hibernating 50 feet under the snow. She wasn't aggressive. She was, spent.
Then I saw why. She wasn't lying down to rest. She was shielding something.
A cub. No bigger than a loaf of bread. And it was dying. She hadn't come to attack. She had come to the only other source of heat in 5th miles. My door.
I thought of the journey she must have made. Leaving the den, walking through this frozen hell with a sick baby in her mouth.
Her paws were raw. She had nothing left to lose but him.
I couldn't bring a 500-pound predator inside, but I couldn't close the door on that sound.
I filled the bowl with warm broth. My dinner. I threw the blanket onto the porch floor. She ignored the food. Her eyes were locked on the blanket.
She pushed her baby onto the only dry, warm spot she had felt in days.
My brain was screaming.
The rule with wild things is simple. You never touch their young. Ever.
She watched my hand, and she did the one thing a predator never does to prey. She closed her eyes.
He was hypothermic, starving. She couldn't make milk anymore. The cold had stolen it.
Sugar. That was the only chance. A jolt of energy to keep the spark lit. It was barely a whisper, but in the silence, it was a victory cry.
That sound, it wasn't a growl. It was relief. A mother hearing her child breathe.
So this was the arrangement. My heat for their lives.
The temperature inside the cabin dropped to 40 below. My water jug froze solid 6 feet from the stove.
But the frost on the floor stopped 2 inches from the blanket. My heat was saving that one small square of the world.
I had to keep her hydrated so she could produce milk. It was the most insane logistic problem I'd ever faced.
She drank like it was the first water she'd seen in a week. Probably because it was.
He was weak. The cold had seeped into his bones.
I wasn't a vet. I was just a man with a fire and a bad sweater.
Sometimes, the difference between life and death is just a layer of ugly wool.
That blink was her currency. She was paying me in trust. The storm was getting worse. We were all running out of time.
To keep the fire going, I had to walk past the bear.
I was within striking distance. A single paw swipe would shatter my femur. She didn't care about me. She cared about the heat coming from the door behind me.
I burned my emergency supply, the wood I was saving for the end of the month.
It was a sauna for a giant. A reprieve from the ice.
Day 2. He was looking at me, not just existing, but seeing.
He didn't know the rules. He didn't know I was supposed to be the enemy.
In the isolation of the deep freeze, even a bear's discipline felt like company. Seeing her stand, I realized how small my cabin really was.
I thought, this is it. She's leaving.
But she wasn't leaving. She was building a wall, a living, breathing shield for her son.
The stick felt like an insult now. You don't need a stick with someone who uses their body as your windbreak.
She took the brunt of -71, so he could have -40.
The call of the wild. Darkness had fallen. The cub slept soundly. I read on. The sounds of the wild were kept at bay by our walls.
She hadn't slept deeply since leaving the den. Her body knew it was safe to shut down.
I was guarding a sleeping bear. Life is strange.
The sun came back. The cold was still deadly, but the wind had stopped screaming. He was playing. You don't play when you're dying. She knew it was time. The window was open. They had to get back to the den before the next front hit.
She looked at me. Not through me. At me.
She gave me that sound. The cub sound.
And then she picked him up. He was wearing my ugly sweater.
They disappeared into the white. No tracks. The wind erased them in seconds. It was like they were never there, except for the shape in the ice. I brought it inside. It melted, but I kept the shape in my head.
We think we're the only creatures who know desperation. We think we're the only ones who know love.
But I saw it that week. Wrapped in fur and frostbite.
She had nothing left to lose. And so, she knocked on a monster's door.
I leave the bowl out now. Every night.
Just in case the ice gets too heavy for a mother to carry alone. This is Siberia, where even the wild knows where to find mercy.
If the cold couldn't freeze your heart today, make sure to warm ours with a like and subscribe to Cold Breath. We'll see you on the next freeze.